Every single day, people take unwanted or unused items to thrift and antique stores across the country. But as the saying goes, one man's trash is another man's treasure, and we're here to prove it. Identify valuable things before you throw them away. Join us as we show and tell of treasures found and sold by a full-time reseller with the hopes of helping you find some treasures of your own. Welcome to the What's Sold podcast.
Welcome back to the What's Sold podcast. I am Brandon. This is Matt.
Hello.
Some of you know him as Rusty. I was just talking to Matt. Matt, as we know, it's been well documented on the show, was sick for the last couple of weeks.
He's
lost so much weight that he can now eat whatever he wants, whenever he wants. So I think old Rusty's going full Southern cooking. Like, I'm thinking fried everything.
Yep. As long as it is a color in a range of white to brown, right? I can eat it. Nothing green, nothing orange, nothing.
Don't be silly.
Come on. It needs to have a batter on it. Preferably deep fried. I gotta put those LBs back on. I'm walking around like a frail. I feel like I should be holding a hand cane. Yeah, I mean, walk around.
By the way, our listeners right now are throwing their phones out the window, or if they're watching on YouTube, they're like punching the screen because they're so mad at you. Like,
okay, listen, it's genetics.
I've
never, listen. I'm certainly got lots of things that I would love to change about myself. I got some of the genetic downers, I got some of the good stuff too, right? But one of the things that I just, by no effort of my own, I never have to lose weight. That's just, whatever.
Son of a gun.
I know. But can you imagine what it's like to weigh too little and you need to, like that? That's probably what most people don't experience.
No, I can't imagine that.
Well, I got to say, it's like the ends of the bell curve. It's not that great on this side either. So, got to work on it.
I don't know. Because I do like you. I do respect you. I enjoy our time together. I don't feel sorry for you. I'm just going to put it out there.
Fair enough.
I'm speaking for, I think, 94% of our audience right now who's like, we are glad you're healthy, Rusty, but we all wish that we could weigh.
But just get out of here. Yeah,
exactly.
I get it.
Eat your Girl Scout. When we got on today, people.
I'm eating Girl Scout cookies.
Matt was just stuffing his maw full of Girl Scout. We both have Girl Scouts in our house. So
do you want to venture to guess which ones, what type that I was eating?
I think that must have been Thin Mints, right?
It wasn't, man. It was the peanut butter patties.
Oh, yeah. I don't like. I kind of find most Girl Scout cookies not my favorite. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm the same way. But you know what? It's because this is that time of year. Our daughters come home with the boxes, and here they are sitting on the counter, and it's like, man, it's just easy to grab. One of those packages on the way. Right.
Now they keep changing the names on us, so it's like I can't keep track of anything. It's one day it's Samoa's, then it's something else, and I'm just like, whatever happened to the
not PC anymore?
Well, I was the Girl Scout cookie manager for our daughter's troop, which was the worst job I've ever had in my life, and I didn't even get paid for it. And it was amazing. Like, they sell different Girl Scout cookie names for different regions of the country. I'm not sure why.
Huh. Okay.
But they changed the names based on, I guess some people think that Samoa's is bad, so they changed it to Caramel Delights, I think they're called in some of the places.
Delights.
So I think we call them Caramel Delights, and I'm like, I will not call them Caramel. They are Samoa's. So anyway, we are in the midst of, so it is, our daughters are learning how to be resellers. Let me tell you, it is. It is a cutthroat business out there selling Girl Scout cookies.
That's right. You got to put the elbows out, and you got to make some room for yourself. That's right. Well, listen, this is a great intro. I just really feel like I need to talk about myself a little bit more, though. I need to get into, I like long walks on the beach.
We have had rarely do we mostly get positive comments. So we posted up the podcast as a YouTube show just simply so that people could. It takes no time. We just posted up there so people could see the items if they were at all interested, not thinking that, hey, I'm going to listen to a podcast on YouTube. Maybe they are, whatever. But we got this comment this last week from somebody saying, hey, why don't you two just shut up and talk? I was like, it was like so meanie pants.
It's humbling.
It's humbling. I said to Matt before, I was like, I really just want to say this person's name, but I guess you could look on the thing. But I went back and looked at their page and they've posted nothing, but it's sort of like, wait, so you're mad that this free show that is purely here to help, we get nothing from it, that we put this up there, that you're mad that we talk about ourselves. So you know what, Matt and I have decided we're just going to filibuster.
It's okay.
We're just going to talk like our corns.
You know,
we're going to talk about whatever.
Thank you for the feedback out there, and we certainly will take it under advisement, and we're going to, less about us, more about the things that we sold and what you should sell. And I mean, listen, you're coming, you can go to any type of channel. If you listen to this, it's probably not because of anything we're saying about ourselves. It's probably about, the world of the work that we do.
Yeah.
And that is the main point of this. So we do want, it does help getting feedback, getting comments, getting reviews. So definitely, this is all tongue in cheek, but it does help if you get on and say something. And just be gentle, but if you have suggestions, we'll certainly take those. I mean, we want to give people what they want to hear, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is true. I mean, we could, I had a friend who said, it's like most podcasts, they spend like first 15 minutes just yapping. I want to get into this stuff. I'm like, hey, listen, there's a couple of tricks, and I use them all the time. Seriously. I'm being serious now. I'm not even being tongue in cheek. Just pull the bar forward, skip all the nonsense and go right to, because especially on the YouTube channel, there are chapter markers on there. So it will tell you what we're talking about when. So if there's something you really want, one of the great things about podcasts and about, YouTube, whatever, is that as opposed to the old days when you were listening to a radio program, I guess you could record it on a tape recorder, but by and large,
tape.
That was it. You couldn't go back and listen. The great part is we're putting information out there, and if you want to go listen to it again, that's totally fine. We do appreciate, in all sincerity, we've gotten some really sweet and kind comments and some great emails from people.
Yeah.
We appreciate the reviews you write. All that stuff is super helpful to us. Our goal with the show is to have this show make enough money that we can keep doing it. It's never going to make us rich.
And can just pay himself for the time that he spends on doing all this production work for it, because he does 99.9% of the work here. So
well, that's not true, because you're out schlepping, dude. If we didn't have you schlepping, it's a labor of love for both of us, for sure. But
it is.
Bottom line is that anything you could do to help is really appreciated. All right. Enough of that. We are glad to be back. I think both of us are much more on the mend now. We've both been sick, but as a lot of people are, it's the season. So we are going to talk about things bought and sold in this episode. And we're going to start by talking about a couple episodes ago, I think 3 or 4 episodes, maybe 2, I don't even remember. We were talking about how to list products. And I started thinking about it, and I started looking. I'm like, man, there's a fine art to listing. So Matt is going to regale us with some more fine-tuning of listing. So think about it as like you want to sell a product. What's the best way to position yourself to sell that product? So
yeah, I think
how do we do that, Matt?
Well, it sort of depends on, the first, even before you list, is you kind of have to familiarize yourself with what platforms are available for you to list on. Some people really love Etsy and they just want to sell on Etsy. Other people have, there are different platforms. Some people are like, I don't even want to mess with those. I'm happy just selling on Facebook Marketplace, where you're really primarily targeting people in your geographic area within an hour or less usually. And so there are pros and cons with all of those, right? Online platforms like eBay and Etsy, the advantage to using those sites is that for the most part, their platforms are pretty robust and pretty intuitive, pretty easy to use, especially even if you're just starting out. There are a lot of things you can do but don't have to do. And so, the advantage is you're getting a large market. You can potentially sell to people all over the world, and you have, because there are more people, there's more competition, so you potentially stand to make more money, depending on what the item is. Downside is they take a percentage fee of the sale. Downside is there's a little bit of a risk if you're a seller, because as we discussed in the past, if it ever comes up that there's a dispute, eBay is much more likely to support the buyer, whether they're in the right or not. And so you need to know that going in. But there's advantages of Facebook Marketplace. Yeah, you're tapping a smaller area and less people. But when you make that sale, it's just whatever the price is. You negotiate that with the person. You meet up. You sell it to them. They usually will give you cash or whatever it is that you're willing to accept. And so you can have cash in hand that day if you sell something. Whereas with eBay, not only do you have to wait till it sells, you have to wait till they pay, and you also have to wait until the end of your return window to make sure that that item isn't returned and you don't have to give the money back. So that's the first thing, is to kind of explore and see what you enjoy using as far as the platform. If you want to give all of that percentage and accept the risks of selling on a platform like eBay or something, then go for it. But, Marketplace is its own thing. It's easier. There's less information you have to put on something like that. But you do have to communicate much more frequently with people. People are contacting you. You need to be available and by your phone, that kind of thing. And that's one of the reasons I don't love Facebook Marketplace, because I don't like to be tied to my device like that all day and have to be responding, as fast as possible. Some people dig that. Other people do like a quasi thing, like they have a YouTube channel or they have a Facebook page and they'll run live auctions. Now that really only works well if you have a pretty big following, because if nobody knows who you are, you can throw up a live listing and you'll have like 2 people who pop in and like that's not really going to help your cause. But if some of these YouTube channels that also do the stuff that we do with the Rusty, they kind of have transformed, and their YouTube channel is less. They're really leveraging that in order to sell. Not as much give information about the content. It's more like, oh, okay, like you're here. I've got whatever, they may have 100,000 subscribers. And when they say next week, we're going to do this live auction, and they jump on at 7:30, 8 p.m., they might have 150, 200 people sitting there waiting, ready to bid. And you just kind of put it up and say, this is the starting bid. I'm going to give this a minute. Whatever the highest bid is who will buy it. And they run through all of their things. And then at the very end, they spend the next few hours emailing out or messaging every single person who had won. Like, hey, by the way, you had the winning bid on this, blah, blah, blah. This is the price. This is how you pay me. I'll give you tracking when I ship it. So I know that's a lot, right? That's a lot of information that I just sort of dumped. But there's the art of the listing itself. But then there's possibly even more importantly is like, well, where are you going to list? And it might make sense if you're starting out to like dip your toe in several of them, get some experience with all of them, compare and contrast. I know you've sold on eBay before, Brandon. You may have had some decent experiences. You've had some not so good experiences. Like most of us, if we've used a platform like eBay long enough, we end up having some negative experiences as well. And that's, when I'm selling thousands of things a year, statistically speaking, someone's going to try to, haggle me. Someone's going to try to be fraudulent. Someone's going to, there's going to be some disputes that have to be resolved. So do you have the stomach for that, to do it in that way? Or would you just say, I want to mess with that? And there's no right or wrong. It's just like a person's, own preference.
Yeah. It's funny because I had, I talked about the fact that I had a terrible experience on eBay, and it was because I was ignorant. I didn't know. Like, honestly, if I had been working on this show, or if I'd have been listening to these episodes, none of that would have happened to me. I didn't know that the buyer could just say, I don't want it, and send it back. I was like, wait, what? Because obviously when you sell on Facebook Marketplace and somebody says, hey, whatever, there's no
afterwards,
recourse.
hey, I decided I don't want this. You just say, well, thanks for letting me know, but like we've already made the transaction. It's over.
Yeah, it's done.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas eBay is a completely different beast. And so I think I would probably go back more into eBay now and sell, knowing what I know now, because I know how to protect myself. I know how to list things. I know how to say, to make sure, like, hey, am I getting a real buyer right now? Or is this just somebody, like the shipping and all that stuff? I would have built in those kinds of things into the sale that I didn't know before. So it was like, okay, we're going to build it in, but if I've got to eat it, I want to build in enough profit that it's not going to kill me, and make sure that somebody understands what the thing is. Mine was a remote, so it was a little bit more. When you're selling things that have, I love what you say about selling jewelry. Like, there's not a lot of complication to it. Ultimately, it works or it doesn't work. When you're selling electronics, if they don't know how to operate it, they go like, I just don't know how to operate it. I'm not going to mess around with it, and that's really problematic when you're in an electronics world, because a lot of this stuff is, I have a lot of electronic equipment that takes time to figure out. And if somebody says, I don't want to take the time, they can just send it back.
And to be honest with you, there are people whose their entire store, their niche is electronics. They love doing that. But if you're going to buy and sell electronics, you need to know ahead of time that it's going to be on you. You're going to have to do more work than I do with the things I sell, because you have to plug them in, you have to test them all out, and you have to make sure that they work. If they don't work, and you're handy enough, you spend the time, or you figure out, oh, it just needs this other part, or I'm going to fix it. But see, now you've stepped into this whole world of work and time before you list something. And if I see a really awesome deal on a piece of electronic equipment that I don't have the ability to link up and test, like if I see a stereo system, like a receiver, well, like I may not have speakers and other things that I need to plug in to make sure it all works before I listen. And if you list it and you don't know what works, you had better say that in the title of the listing. Untested, may require repair, or for parts or repair. Because if they get it and they're under the impression it works and it doesn't, even if one button on it doesn't work, you're facing a return. So I don't like that, because, and again, some people are really into electronics. They like it. They enjoy that piece. And it's no different than how I feel about, let's say, artwork or instruments, right? Some people would be like, I would never buy an instrument that's damaged, knowing that I have to repair it. Well, that's because they're not interested in that thing, or maybe
Right.
they don't have the skill set to do it. I have both. And so I do that from time to time, or with artwork, because I enjoy it. So if you enjoy a thing and you're willing to do the work, that's totally fine. That's your thing. Just know that ahead of time. Know that what's going to be expected of you. But I think this kind of leads into the next phase of your question, which is more specifically your question, which is, how do you list? What's the important thing? I can really mainly speak from experience on platforms like eBay or Etsy, but this would also apply to any listing. I would say that the number 1 and 2 most important things, these are the things that are going to either get that buyer that you're looking for or not, or are going to be the difference between whether somebody buys yours and not one that someone else has, right? The 2 most important things are your title of the listing, your title and the photographs. Everything else, there's other information out there, how you price things, whether it's a buy it now or an auction, how you go about setting up how you're going to ship the item. Those are all important things too. And some of those have money attached to them, like the shipping piece. So you do need to figure that out. But if you can get really good at knowing who your buyer is and what they're looking for, what they're going to be looking for, you need to put yourself in their shoes and say, okay, right now I want to sell this vintage watch. I need to imagine, who is the person looking on eBay for a vintage men's automatic watch? What words, what keywords are they going to use to find it? And what are they going to want to see? Well, they're probably going to want to see the words vintage, the words men's, if it's a men's watch, like make it specific. It's a round or a rectangular dial. It has the original elasticy metal band, the ones that are great for pinching and pulling your hair out of your arm and stuff that everyone loved so much back in the 50s and 60s or whatever. And you photograph the things that are in your title. So if I say, this is a black dial Bulova men's automatic watch, when they look at the picture, the very first picture should be a close-up of the dial showing that it says Bulova and it's black and it is a watch. Boom. Then if they're intrigued, they're going to go and look at the rest of the images, but not just all of your images, but specifically the one you choose to be the one that pops up first, the one that everyone sees. It needs to be the most attractive.
Can you explain that for people that are just starting out? Because that was one that I learned when I was kind of doing some pictures of different things for you.
Yeah.
And like, you can target one. Can you talk about that real quickly?
Well, and you need to pay attention to it, because I make mistakes all the time, or rather I'll be going through quickly and listing a lot of similar items like watches. And let's say each watch I take 6 to 8 pictures of, let's say. And I upload all of them on my phone. I'm doing it, and I intentionally click on the one that I want to be the one displayed first. The number 1 picture that goes in is the one that eBay pulls to be the display photo. Sometimes I'll go through there and, like, for whatever reason, it uploads in opposite order of how I selected it. So if I'm not paying attention, I look up there and like, oh shoot, I got to go revise that, because the very first picture is the picture of the back of the watch, which a person interested in the watch probably will want to see that, but that's not a picture that's going to draw them in. The back of a watch, like, that's boring, and it doesn't highlight the product. So if whatever your closest up picture, best representation of that item, best looking photo of that item, that's the one you want to select. And whether you're on your phone or in eBay, you can like I said, if you upload it first, the first one usually is the one that goes in. But if not, you can drag and move those around. You can order them any way that you want. And right now with eBay, for example, you can do up to 24 photos per listing without paying additional money. If you want even more photos, you can pay additional money to eBay to have more photos. Almost never do I get to 24 pictures and feel like, man, I wish I had like 10 more. It doesn't happen hardly ever. And something like a watch, for example, I'll do a close-up picture of the dial, of the face of the watch. I'll do a larger, like a further back of the entire piece, left, right, the band if it has it, and the back. If it's a pocket watch, I'll usually remove the back, and I want to show a really good, clean photo of the movement because it'll have a serial number and things, and people can reference that to determine the age of it, the grade, the model, what year it was made, all of that. So take really, really good photos, take close-up photos to begin. That draws people in, like, oh, well, the face looks pretty good. I wonder what the rest of the watch looks like. Then they go in and look at your photos. And if they've spent time, they've gone in, they've looked at photos, they're much more likely to come back and be interested in buying than just scrolling by something, because this is in that world of media and everything where you're just always bombarded with everything, right? Like all these social media platforms are set up for you to watch it for 2 seconds. Within 1 or 2 seconds if you want to keep watching it or not, and you just scroll, you move on past. It's the same thing with eBay. If I look up vintage men's automatic wristwatch, 76,000 items are going to pop up. Am I going to go through 70? No. Probably won't even go through the first page, you know what I mean, of 200 items. So you want to have something that's going to draw attention. That brings me to the next most important. So the important things, probably not in any particular order, but tied, are the title and the photos. The thing that I think sets me apart as a full-time seller and someone that sells higher volumes is that I'm not just going in and listing items day to day. I do that, but about every second to third day, I go in and pull items out of my store. I delist them. So I take them from being a live, available item for people to buy, and I essentially put it back in the system. So instead of relisting it, which will copy that same item number and put it back up there and go back in the same queue that it was in, I click a button that says sell similar. It copies it exactly, and then I relist it. Maybe I adjust the price, maybe I don't. And as soon as that's over, I have to remember to delete the ones that I just copied, because if I try to relist those, I would have duplicates if eBay doesn't catch it. And that'd be bad if you sell one and then a week later you sell the same thing and you go looking for it and you're like, oops, it already sold, right? So you got to remember to do that. But I do that, and because what that does is it puts it back to the top of the queue. So that day when someone comes looking for a men's automatic watch, they're way more likely to see my item today than they would have been had I left it in the queue, 52,000 deep in the queue because I listed it a month ago. So
how often do you relist?
Probably twice a week, something like that.
Okay.
And not everything, but you see, my store, it takes more time now because I have 3 eBay stores, and all 3 of them have over 3,000 items in them each. So, at any given time, I've got 8,000 or 9,000 active listings. You can delist and relist 200 at a time, but that's the most that eBay allows. So that does speed up the process some. But if I want to pull 3,000 items out or 2,000 items out of 3 stores and then relist them all, that could take me an hour or over an hour. And I'm not even listing anything new. I'm just pulling out old things and putting them back in. But you would be shocked, and I know this works because it works for me, and I've shared this on the YouTube channel, and people have gone on and said, thank you. Like, I made 3 sales today. I didn't do anything other than take these out and relist them like you said to do, and look at this, I've got these sales. And it has everything just to do with, there's way more things available for sale than any person has the focus or the time to really go through and look at every single option. They're not going to look at every option. They're going to look at the first 120 options that eBay provides. And they're not going to provide yours every time unless it's one of the newest ones that's been listed as far as their system knows. So that's an important thing. Now, it may not be important if you have 20 items, if you do this super part-time and you have a lot, but also 20 items is easy. You could relist those every day. In one move.
And you should. And you ultimately should.
You're going to have more people will be seeing your item. The more people that see your item, the more likely you're going to get a sale. It's not complicated when it comes down to it. What gets complicated is when you have thousands of things and you're trying to store them and you have 30 or 40 items you have to fulfill every single day and you have a time frame. Like, that's when it gets complicated, and you get to a point where you're like, well, I almost need another person to help with some of these tasks. But that's way down the road. If you're part-time, these things should be easy and they shouldn't take long. In fact, just build that into your day. If you're going to do some work on eBay, first thing you do every day is delist those items, sell similar, put them on there, delete the ones you just copied, and then now you can move on to new things. But put those things out there for people to see, because it will translate to more sales. It does for me all the time.
Is there any limit on how many times you can relist an item?
As far as I know, there isn't.
So you could, if you were just a part-time reseller, you could list it every single day for a year. And eventually someone's going to come along and find it.
Yeah. And if if you have had an item that's been up there for over 90 days, most eBay people who sell would say, if something sells within the first 90 days, that's good. That's above the curve. But if you have something that's been up for months, you've not really had a lot of watchers, no one's touching it, you have some work to do. You need to go back and analyze that listing and see, what's the problem here? Do I have it in the correct category? Are my photos clear, crisp, and really representing the item? Do I have the best photo available to be the showcase photo? What's my title look like? Am I really catching those people that I'm looking for? Or have I omitted or not thought about certain words that they're searching for, and because that word's not on my title, it's never popping up for them, and I'm missing these buyers? What is it? Is my shipping too high? Is my price? Go back and look at sold items of similar things in the last 90 days. Is yours priced above all of those? Well, that may be it. Maybe it's just too high. You need to lower the price. But you need to go in periodically, especially when things haven't sold for a while, and say, okay, is it just that I have it high and that's I have to sell it for that, or I'm not going to sell it. I have to make that amount? Or are you like, I'm not in a hurry. I don't care if it takes me a year to sell it, so I'm not going to make any adjustments? Or do you have to be even more creative? Well, clearly nobody wants this item by itself, but maybe if I put it with 2 or 3 other similar items and make a small lot, and then I raise the price a little bit, I'm going to sell it and I'll move a couple other things too. There's all kinds of things that you can do, and that's really the more maintenance piece of it. That's after you've listed things. But initially listing, if you can get really good photos, if you can get the best photo first, if you can utilize all the characters in the title, which I can't remember how many it is, like 80. I think it's 80 characters. So you can use words, you can use abbreviated words, and you can use dashes, whatever you need to do in that title to highlight what what it is, and also put the most pertinent words first. It doesn't have to be like a perfect sentence, right? I might say watch lot, vintage, mixed, men's watches, east to 1960s. But you notice the very first word was watch, and the second word was lot. So if a person's looking to buy watches in groups, not just individuals, well, that's the best 2 words to start with, right? Because that's what they're searching for.
Especially if that's the way you want to sell it, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, it struck me when I was listening to this, is playing again the amateur sleuth that I am here. How do I know, you said something about, are you sure it's in the right category? Mm-hmm. How do I know if it's in the right category? How do I ascertain the right category?
So there are many categories and subcategories and subcategories within eBay. So one category, let's say, might be coins and jewelry, and that's one big one. If you were to click on that, there'll be like 10 more. There'll be like foreign coins, United States coins. There'll be costume jewelry, fine jewelry, antique jewelry, and then that's a subset. So you click on that, and then within costume jewelry, it'll say brooches and pins, or necklaces, or brooches, or mixed jewelry lots. And whatever is most reflective of the thing you're trying to sell, that's the category you want to put it in. Some people will search within categories. Like, for example, if I put in buttons, antique buttons, and what I'm really looking for are sewing buttons that are antique, and I want to see what those have sold for, either individually or lots, because I got a bunch of buttons that I need to sell for somebody. Well, if all I do is just look up buttons and I don't click on a category, anything in any category that says buttons is going to pop up. Electronic equipment that have buttons on them, or, remote controls, full outfits, jackets that have buttons. If they write big buttons in the title, whatever, that's going to pop up. And that's just like, that's convoluted. That's too much stuff. No, on the side, I want to go to antiques or something like that, the subcategory, and then within antiques, sewing, like collectible sewing items. There we go. So like that's the category. So if you're selling an antique button and you put in your photos and you put in your title, the next thing is you select the category that is how eBay categorizes it within their system. So if a person is searching not only for a keyword or words, and they're also searching within a particular category, you don't want to have it miscategorized because then your item may not pop up for them and you want it to. So you can do that. I make mistakes on it sometimes because I do lots of things to try to cut corners and shorten time so that I can sell higher and list more volumes of things. One of the ways I cut corners is you don't have to start a listing from scratch. Now, if you're just starting out, I recommend you do that because you need to familiarize yourself with all the types of information you can input and knowing what things are required to be put in there, item specifics per category, because every category is different. If I have something in fine jewelry versus antique jewelry, one of those categories may require me to put in a piece of specific information about it, a brand or something like that, whereas the other category won't. But where I sometimes get into trouble is I copy listings that have already sold of a similar item. So if I wake up today and I want to sell a bunch of antique hat pins, the first thing I do is I look up antique hat pin in eBay, I go to sold items, and then I scroll down until I find a picture that most closely, very quickly, closely resembles the item I'm going to sell. I click on the item, it shows you how much it sold for, if it was auction or buy it now, and there's a little button that says one now, or sell one like this. I just click that, it copies the entire listing. The only thing it doesn't copy is the title, the photo, and the price. So all I have to do now is input my photos. Actually, it keeps the title. You can adjust the title to match your item. And then you go down and fix the price or adjust the shipping, whatever, and boom, I've got it done. Now, the reason I mess up sometimes is that I go through and I adjust the title, the photos, and the price, but I don't always remember to pay attention to the category. Now, I'm just having to assume that that person had the correct category on the item they sold, but sometimes they don't have the best category. Sometimes they copy someone else's listing and they didn't pay attention to it. You see what I'm saying? And it's just like a domino thing, and here I am. So you got to pay attention. When I sell gold, like scrap gold, like in just by the weight, I don't list that in fine jewelry, even though that's what it is. It's fine jewelry with gold or gemstones. I list it in a gold bullion category. Why do I do that? Because people who buy scrap metal, they sometimes get discounts when they purchase in that specific category. Something that eBay offers to them is like a discounted. So even selling it in one category versus another, not only are you maybe catching a different type of buyer, but there may be advantages for them buying out of certain categories because of, discounts or things, coupons, things that eBay is offering to the buyers that you won't even know about as a seller. And I only know about that because as I sold in the past and I had it categorized something else, they would say, hey, this month I get 10% off of buying in the bullion category. So would you mind delisting this and relisting it just in that category? Oh, okay. I do that.
Cool.
10 seconds later, they've bought my item because I worked with them, right? So category can be important as well.
And I don't know if people have been paying attention out there, but because of President Trump's tariffs on different alloys and metals, gold prices are, I think they're the highest they've ever been right now.
They're very, very high. I mean, highest it's been certainly since I've been selling full time. So, I didn't look today, but I want to say, 14 karat gold by the gram is like over $60 a gram. So if you have a broken piece of jewelry that's 14 karat, don't pitch it. It could be worth $100 or more, just because they'll buy it for the metal.
Yeah, and there's a lot going on in the alloys and especially in the gold world right now. And again, I don't know anything about it. Just what I've read, but there was talk about gold that's in items that you throw away. There's gold in them thar hills is basically what the amounts to.
Old eyeglasses, the rims of old eyeglasses, the nibs on old fountain pens. You'd be surprised. You'd be like, what? Pull out an old pen that grandpa left you and it might say 14K on it.
And it's worth a lot of money right now. So start looking for gold bullion. It's basically the answer to that.
Any bricks of gold you've got laying around that you just didn't pay attention to?
Spanish doubloons.
It's just holding your door open, a kickstand.
Yeah, the treasure chest that you found in the attic filled with gold doubloons.
The largest gold nugget maybe that's still ever been found. Certainly one of the largest that was ever found was found in, I want to say either late 1700s or early 1800s in North Carolina, and they were using it to as a door prop. They were using it. It was like a boulder, and they were using
Sure.
it just to keep a door open.
Yeah,
and someone
as one
eventually
does.
bought it. But like that, yeah, I mean, back then you're like, well, why can't I just use this for another purpose too until I need to sell it for the ore?
Yeah, why not? I mean, sure. All right. Anything else on listing that people need to be aware of, or did you pretty much cover it?
I think we covered it. I would say that the way I like to do listings, because I'm very familiar with the process now, and it's faster to do it on my phone because I take the photos on my phone, is I'll wait until I have multiples of the same type of item. I got 100 postcards here. I got 100 wristwatches. I got 100 pieces of costume jewelry. They're all brooches. I'll get up in the morning and all I'll do is photograph them till they're all done. Front and back, or however many photos you need to take to represent that item. I'll photograph all of them. Then I'll go in and make a listing for costume brooch. I'll find one that's sold. I'll copy it. I'll make sure that it all looks good. Then all I have to do is input the new photos, adjust the title or the price if I need to. But let's say I'm going to run them all at like $20 on auction that day. So I don't have to even change the price. The only thing I have to do is change the pictures and change the title. This one's got red rhinestones. The other one had blue. So I just swap out the color and I'm done. And I can list hundreds of items in a day. People are always like, oh man, if I can get 20 done in a week, like I'm doing well. You're spending too much time on stuff that's not important, is what I would say. Whatever you're doing that takes you that long, it doesn't have to take you that long. And it's not always about a volume game, right? If you have something that's really valuable, it's probably worth you spending a lot of time to make sure that listing looks perfect and do everything you need to do. But for costume brooches that are $20 a piece or less, I don't have to spend a ton of time. I photograph them. I put them in. Everything that is needed to find that buyer is there, and I don't need to do any more than that because you have diminishing gains on that. You're spending time that is not going to translate into any more sales or any more money, so just don't do it.
Yeah.
And so I would say, you can do a lot more in a short amount of time than you think you can. Don't get hung. A lot of people just get hung up, especially in the beginning, because they're a little nervous. Like, well, I just want to make sure I'm doing it correctly. I want to make sure that I don't sell it for too little, and all of those are valid things to consider. But it's just a stats game. The more things I have in my store, the more I'm going to sell. 10% of 100 items is a lot less than 10% of 10,000 items. If I'm still always selling 10% of my stuff per month, the more I have in there, the better I'm going to do. You get more out of it the more you get out there. So not only that, but if you have people who buy from your store and want to be a repeat buyer and follow your store, then they're always alerted to the things, and the more things you have available as options, the more likely someone's going to find something they want.
Great. Wow. Whew. Talk about a knowledge dump. That was awesome.
Boom.
Okay. All right. So in our last few minutes together, what did you sell? This show is about what we sold.
It is.
What did you sell this week, Matt?
Handful
Now you're back.
of
You're
things.
going great guns. You're out there again.
Yep.
What'd you sell?
Well, one of the things I sold was this. I'm just showing you one and discussing it, but it is a bookend that is actually it is metal. It is, I guess, technically a bronze, but it's not real heavy. It's fairly thin coating, but it's of a traditional.
Didn't you show us this a while ago?
When I got it, and it's sold, but then they decided they wanted to cancel the order before I even was able to ship it, so I had to relist it. And it's okay. It's sold for $60. It's a Native American with a dog. It looks like he's kind of hunting or he's kind of just hanging out. Kind of cool, reminiscent of some of those older Western artists like Remington, people who had bronzes. This isn't a horse with a cowboy on it, but it's sort of the same general style. $60. I only paid $12 for that pair at a thrift store. So I thought that was a good deal. I would like to have sold it for a little more, maybe if I had waited longer. But again, I'm just trying to move stuff. I have a bag full I bought at a Goodwill, of all places. It's been a couple of years now, and they're still selling. But I have a bunch of slab cut pieces of like agate and jasper, like colorful thing, like banded agate and stuff like that. They're really beautiful. Different colors. I'm going to put a little water on this so you can see how much brighter. It's really pretty. It's slab. It's probably a quarter of an inch thick, and it's like semi-translucent. Like you can maybe even see as I'm holding it, like light kind of coming through some of it. It's beautiful. People like these. Some people like them just as specimens to have, like rock and mineral specimens that they put out and display. But actually, a lot of people buy these who are jewelers, or they do crafts and things. They will take these and then they'll sand them down, or they'll shape them to put them into like rings or necklaces or jewelry. Pendants are very common for big, like pretty pieces of agate and stuff. And so I have a bunch of these, various sizes and weights, So I just list them all. I weigh them. I showed them with water on them so they can get the best possible color. That's what my photos look like. And they're selling various amounts, but this one is more kind of in like reds and oranges and peach color. It's really kind of pretty, most likely from the Pacific Northwest, probably like Oregon or Washington, something like that is where it was found originally. It would have been a giant piece but they had cut little slabs out of for the purpose of using in jewelry. And this sold for $24. I think I paid $60 for a bag of a lot. I mean, several pounds, 8 or 10 pounds worth of these things. And they're just slowly selling. It's easy. That's not a lot of money. But when over time, when I end up now having like, I don't know, 50 or 60 bags of stuff like this, that I've already made my money back on. And it's like anytime these things sell, it just, it gives me a grin because I'm like, okay, they're still selling. And they're just going to sit there for a long time, and it just helps. Those are like the in-between sales, just keep things moving.
Yeah.
I'm not expecting you're going to sell today. Why would they sell today? They've been up for a year and a half. But probably because I delisted it, relisted it, someone saw it, and boom, there it is.
That's
so
awesome.
That's nice. Yeah, I'm still selling pieces of this jade, these jade carved like pendants and different things that I bought in that large lot I sold. I actually have 4, but I'm just holding up a couple of examples. One is kind of a mint green color. It's flat on one side, but it's carved out in the shape of like a mouse, like a mice, and some fruit on one. And then the other one is more of like just a floral design. It looks like a bunch of flower petals and things. It's kind of like a whitish, greenish kind of mixture. Jade, by the way, can come in
typically hand carved?
any kind of yeah, these are carved. I say hand carved. Really old ones are hand carved, but we have technology like Dremel tools and industrial things, and a lot of these are probably cut out because they can do it quickly. They can get more detail by using that kind of thing, but they got to polish it a certain way. If it's not polished a particular way, then you can usually pretty easily tell the difference between a modern piece and one that's a couple of 100 years old. But they're pretty, they're cool. People use them as jewelry. People, again, just collect them as display pieces. They're selling on an average of about $40 a piece. So this lot of 4, I sold for like $125 and it was the same buyer. They bought 4 different ones because I could combine shipping. And so, it would have been like $20-some shipping. I reduced it down to $6 because it's not going to cost, it's going to cost between $5 and $6 to ship those. And that's easy. And this person already has bought about a dozen of these from me, and they came back to the store to buy some more. And I've still got more available. I probably sold, 40 to 50% of the ones that I bought. Had about a little over 200 pieces.
Yeah, I remember
originally.
that being a big lot of jade.
It was, yep. And I've not quite made all the money back yet, but probably by the time I sold half of them, I'll have made all the investment money. So the remainder is where I make my profit.
Gravy.
Yeah, pretty nice.
All right, anything else?
I mean, a handful of other things sold, but most of them are packaged up. I tried to do that fulfillment first thing in the morning. I do have a lot of items, though. We'll have a lot to talk about next time. Currently, there are 90 that have bids on auctions that are all ending within the next 2 to 3 days. A bunch of old hunting licenses, a bunch of old badges like forestry department badges from like the 40s and 50s. There's a bunch of watches that I mentioned from a bunch of the stuff I sold. Almost everything on there has a bid of $40 or $50 or more, and there's like 96. So currently there's something around $4,400, $4,500 worth of items that will be ending in the next 3 days, and that's assuming no more things get bid on between now and when they sell. And I expect more will, and there'll be some bids that outbid other people. So this week I'm going to have 100 plus items to fulfill by Friday. And that feels good. Get some of that stuff rolling in.
And next week's show will be absolutely full of what sold items.
Yeah. Oh,
we will spend
tons.
most of the show will be on actually looking at items that sold. So
I mean,
we're
after
looking forward to that.
15 to 30 minute intro where we just talk about ourselves a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the pain in my calf and things like that.
Exactly.
Sure. All right. Well, listen. Remember, folks, if you get a chance to follow, like, and subscribe, that is always helpful. We appreciate all of you that are out there. Even those of you that are giving us advice, helpful advice that maybe not so nice, we appreciate you. So thank you guys for tuning in, as they say. Matt, any last words for the folks?
Yeah, it's a good time of year. This is a good time of year to be, looking and sourcing. February and into March is usually a lower sale period. So if you're experiencing low sales, don't get stressed. That is very typical for most people, whether you're part-time or full-time. It's just a slow time. People are trying to rein in their spending that they overspent on vacations or things in Christmas, okay? And they're well back into the second half of the school year. So kids need new clothes and their, basketball shoes and all these different things. So don't be alarmed. I like to use this time to reorganize things, be creative with how I sell, a lot of delisting and relisting, and then looking for deals. Because if it's not a good time to sell, maybe it's a good time to buy. So drink your emergency before you get out in public, because it's there's a lot of stuff out there, nasty stuff. So be careful.
Wear your N95 masks.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on that note, we thank you guys. We will be back with a brand new show next week. Thanks for tuning in.
Take care.